I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting to order. We have a quorum, and we have one bill in front of us today, members. It's Senate File 256. Senator Chamberlain, would you like to present your bill? Members, just to set expectations, I'd like to give Senator Chamberlain a chance to go through the bill. He's got some testifiers. We'll open it up for some questions. We'll bring in the additional testifiers on your schedule. I think it would be good to be able to have some conversation with Senator Chamberlain, and then we'll be able to ask the other testifiers some questions, and we'll finish up with discussion as needed. We do have the room a little bit past time. I'd like to try to keep it on schedule if we can, and but the intention is to try to move the bill yet today. So, Senator Chamberlain, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members, and thank you for this opportunity to present this important piece of legislation that will help change the lives of thousands of Minnesota kids. What I'd like to do, Mr. Chair and members, is I have an author's amendment, and then I'd like to run through the bill quick, and then I have a few comments, and as you said, bring up testifiers.
Okay, Senator Chamberlain moves the is it the A1? A1 amendment. All those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed? Motion carries. Senator Chamberlain.
Members, this just is a technical change reference to Minnesota statute, so nothing substantial. They just had to get the reference right.
Please, Senator Chamberlain.
All right. We'll run the, Mr. Chair and members, we'll run through the bill quick. Well, it's short 8 pages, but it does a lot for Minnesota kids. We'll start with the first page. First page of the bill, subdivision 14 and 15. These two changes just essentially prevent double dipping. They take a deduction at the federal level, and so we add back the deduction. It's a charitable deduction at federal level, so we add back the deduction so we can take the credit on the state tax return. Page 2, not much there, but there's two parts. I should say there's two parts of this bill. As you may see, the first part is about the existing credit that we already have. We have an existing credit in statute, so the first part deals with that. And what we do with that credit is we do two things. One is we add tuition, as you see on the bottom of page 2. So we'll now include credit for tuition costs. And the second part of it on page 3, the credit is adjusted for inflation. So two parts of the bill: existing credit that's already in law. We add tuition and inflation adjustments to that. So now on to the real exciting stuff. Equity and opportunity in education credit, page 3. They start by talking about eligibility, who can get the credit, and households. The second, page 4, is simply talking about starts talking about qualifications and continues that. Qualifications, there are income limits on this, as you see and perhaps see in your description too. So top of page 4, we talk about income limits being tied to free and reduced lunch. And as you go down, I have the next one is, as I said, Title 42. And go down further to line 420. Qualified schools, talks about qualified schools and definitions. And line 20, I want to point out the Commissioner of Revenue. These are 501c3s, these scholarship granting organizations. They had to apply for 501c3s, and if any of you have done that, I have. It's not easy, and so it has the IRS has oversight over these organizations, so it's not just any mom and pop that are going to set up shop in a corner. It's also non-discriminatory. If you look at, I believe, 427, there's requirements for non-discrimination. We have to apply to all schools. So we have accountability in there too. Page 5, top, that's the credit. There is a limit to the credit. The credit is 70% of the average general education revenue. So 70% of that. So the credit has limits to it. There is when you look under sub 2 on 5.3, you go down to 5.7 or 5.6, and it talks about no credit is allowed for a taxpayer who designates a specific child as the beneficiary. So you cannot just go out and say, well, I want all my money to go to John or Jane Doe. It doesn't, you don't get a credit if you do that. There are limitations, maximums on the credit. As you can see down by 510 and following that. So $21,000 for different filing for that first level at 511 on 5.11. $21,000 of a donation for 30, so that is 70%. You only get 70% of that. So you have to get, the credit can be 70% of the average revenue, and if you give $30,000, you can only get a 70% credit on what you give. So it's not 100% credit. Go down a little further. More notes. 525 is the next spot I have. These are non-refundable. They do have carryover, so non-refundable. They have carryover, 5-year carryover. All right. It's page 6. There are, someone asked me the other day in the hallway about accountability. There's a lot of accountability here. And as you see, starting on 6.9, well, let me go back to the top of 6, so page 6, 6.1. People talk about the amount of money, that how much is going to cost. $35 million. We put a cap on this, so we say there's going to be $35 million available for this credit. It's first come, first served. So get your application in there, apply for the credit, and when that $35 million is expired, it's expired for that particular year. 6.9. We talk about responsibilities of qualified foundations. They are, again, accountable. They have to be a 501c3. They have to give to qualified schools. There's reports. They have to, there are also, they have to abide by U.S. civil rights and human rights law, and they have to be a qualified school by Minnesota definition. And page 7, again, more qualifications and responsibilities towards the bottom. Talk about the responsibilities of the commissioner. To get the certificate, the commission, to get the credit, the person applying for the credit, asking for the credit has to receive a certificate from the commissioner. And they cannot get the credit if they don't have the certificate and submit that to the commissioner. The commissioner has responsibilities, and that commissioner will have to come up with documents in the process for the certificate and for filing this. And they also have auditing authority over the foundation. Again, accountability for that. I want to bring your attention to 7.22 on that line. There is a limit. We also limit how much can be used for admin, 5%. Again, accountability. All through here. The commissioner does have some reporting requirements. They have to get back to the applicant for the foundation, and within 60 days, they just can't let it sit on the desk. We're going to skip all the way down to bottom of page 8. Generally, just the purpose. Law requires a purpose statement, as you can see. It explains that, so the purpose is on page 8, and you can read that for yourself. But generally, opportunities for all kids, and that's the run through of the bill, and we'll be, I'll, of course, take questions later. So, just a few words before we get to the testifiers. First, I'd like to thank OAK, Opportunity for All Kids, the organization. People you see sitting behind me in the scarves and others that may not have yellow scarves on. They have worked long and hard to bring this together, and to bring together a broad bipartisan coalition to get this done. And this is not a partisan issue. It's a kid issue. It's an opportunity issue. It's a success issue. If the kids are going to be successful, the state will be successful. So a couple of words before I move on. So what you're going to hear today, members, you're going to hear some old arguments. Arguments we've heard for years, not only here, but before all of us arrived here, that simply argue against parents and kids and choice. Again, this shouldn't be, it'll argue against the cost of this bill, and you've seen it's already minimal. So You're going to hear some old arguments today. I just want to get that out in front because it's not going to be anything new. But for us and the rest of us, the time has come for new opportunities and new solutions to some old education problems and education equity that have been ineffectively addressed not only for the years I've been here, but for decades previous to it. For decades, we have been getting worse and not getting better in many areas. There are good schools out there, there are one-offs, but by all standards and measurements, it has not been improving. This legislation, like, as I said, has bipartisan support in Minnesota, and you have a PowerPoint deck you can look through regarding the polling that was taken. National Minnesota poll shows there is great support for some sort of educational credits or choice for kids in schools. That was conducted by Educational Choice, formerly the Friedman Foundation. But it clearly states, it clearly shows not only are parents and people ready for this and want it, but they have some clever questions in there in the front about before and after information. So the results of the survey are clear. Minnesota wants opportunity and choice for their kids and in their schools. I want to read you something quickly here from Oak, a paragraph. This is from Oak. We know that too many families throughout Minnesota have little or no option when it comes to a good K-12 school. A child's future should not be determined by the zip code they live in or by the parent's economic situation. All Minnesota parents should have the opportunity to access the best education options for their children. We need to remove the financial barriers that prevent children from being able to attend schools that meet their needs. And that's from Oak. So again, I believe time has come for us to look for new solutions to create new opportunities for every child in the state of Minnesota, no matter where they're from or what their background. And I, again, will thank Oak and all the people behind me for creating this and bringing it together and giving us this opportunity. With that, I will be quiet and I'll ask the testifiers to come up to the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Chamberlain. We have Mr. Harris, Ms. White, Mr. Richard, and Ms. Cambries scheduled to testify. If you come up to the table, please introduce yourself for the record, and welcome to the Senate Education Committee.
For the record, my name is Reynolds Anthony Harris. I've been a resident of Minnesota for over 40 years. I am the founder of the Minnesota Harvest Initiative. It's a group of African American business leaders who own our own businesses. We came together about a year and a half ago to begin to think about ways in which we could contribute to support education and economic participation. And during those discussions, we have reached out in our community and held intimate conversations with parents at a barbershop. The barbershop, as some of you know from African American culture, is a fulcrum in the community. It's the one place where all of the economic folks along the spectrum have to come and get a haircut. At some point, you have to. Those have been far-reaching and eye-opening for us as business owners and corporate leaders. And so I'm happy to have my colleagues here with me today, and I'll let them introduce themselves, and then I'll make some comments, and we'll move around.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us here this afternoon. My name is Benito Matias. I'm actually subbing for one of the testifiers who has fallen ill, and I'm here from Ascension Catholic School in North Minneapolis.
Welcome to the Senate.
Yes. Thank you for having us again. My name is Ron Richard. I'm a commercial lender with U.S. Bank.
We are here today to encourage you to do a brave thing. The brave thing is to pass this legislation now.
Mr. Harris, could I ask you to just bring the microphone a little closer?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I thought I was loud enough, but okay.
I thought so, too.
That's all right. I'm a Martin Luther King thing, okay? So, a brave thing, seriously. We smile about it, but we simply cannot. I don't want to keep going around the world in my business and run into people, and when I say I'm from Minnesota, the next thing, or three sentences in, they go, so what is up with the black kids in Minnesota? Getting asked that question by a superintendent in Alabama, it might be funny, but it was embarrassing. I am embarrassed for us and for our children, because we can do better. It's not the kids. And I don't want to get into blaming, is it the teachers or is it the system? It is what it is. We have about 40 to 50% of the kids that may not make it. And so we've got to try something. Well, if you look around and you're a good business person, you begin to say, let me benchmark. Let me see if somebody else is doing this different. What's out there? What have been some of the results? So your folks at Oak have done some good research. Many of us have been riding along and reading this information ourselves. Parents have been reading this information. They've got relatives in states like Wisconsin, Milwaukee. We have a lot of folks in Milwaukee that have relatives there. Their kids get this opportunity to go to a school that the parent chooses. I will urge you to Google St. Martin's School in Milwaukee. 90% black students, they come from the same demographics that we have in some of our low-income neighborhoods here, and they were just featured in the Wall Street Journal. Why? Because of their academic achievement. You cannot convince me as a parent and as a friend of parents that where we are is acceptable. So I'm appealing to you because we elected you. And I'm excited because I think for once, maybe we might have a possibility of getting something done here. So our request is that you pass it, and you pass it swiftly, so that we can get parents educated and get this up and running so that parents have an opportunity to make other decisions. Before I defer to my colleagues here, I also want to say one other thing that we've learned. At the end of the day, the core strength of the educational experience a child experiences in school has to do with the ability of that child to feel loved into excitement for learning. And when you see a child that's unhappy about learning, therein is a problem. And it rarely has to do with the child's competency. So the way that you begin to take care of that is to give the parent the opportunity to make the decision to put their child in the most effective place for their education. I will tell you, I've got good friends in the state of Arizona, and let me tell you, if a school is not performing in that state, the parents leave. In Memphis, Tennessee, when this passed, the Catholic Church was able to open most of their closed urban schools that are now full of African-American young scholars. Why? Because the parents chose to. It isn't all Catholic kids. Most of the kids are not Catholic, but the Catholic schools have a good brand in the South. When you couldn't get a good education in the South, you often would turn to the Catholic schools. The first school in America was founded in New Orleans. The Ursuline nuns came here to the foot of the Mississippi. Guess who met them at the foot of the Mississippi? A brother, a black man like me, that led those nuns up the river to New Orleans and founded the first school in 1724. That school today contains high percentages of African American students. And oh, by the way, we've discovered that, oh, wonderful, Montessori works. And I invite you to look at the Ursuline Academy in New Orleans for an example of what happens when you invite children of color in an urban setting to come to a school at 3 years old and how well they perform. and are on par with the other students, and in some cases ahead of students in New Orleans. Now, they've got their problems in New Orleans, and I'll come up with the next thing. It's important that you have space for homeschooling. Homeschooling is one of the fastest growing movements within the African American community, because, not so much because people have a religious reason for it, is because of the way that parents feel that they are being treated as adults when they come to the school to deal with situations, and the treatment of their children. I'm not here to indict anyone, but I do watch trends. That's what business people do. If the market's going up, well, you know. So if people are starting to homeschool their kids, I'm going to ask, well, why? Is it a philosophical thing? And the answer we're getting back is, I'll quote my daughter, "Dad, they don't want their kids traumatized," unquote. So this is something that is important for you to open up the opportunity for parents to make the best decision for their families. And I'll defer to my colleague, who is a principal of a very fine school on the north side of Minneapolis. Thank you.
See if I can get close to the mic here for the tape.
Yeah, go ahead.
As I mentioned before, my name is Benito Matias. I'm an administrator at Ascension Catholic School in North Minneapolis. And thank you for taking the time to hear our testimony this afternoon. I have an opportunity often, obviously, to speak to parents and scholars alike. And I often talk to them about the environment that we have at our school. And I'm very upfront with anyone who asks, anyone who visits us, that we certainly are not a utopia. We have challenges just like any other school in the state has, any other school within our neighborhood. We're located right in the heart of North Minneapolis, right on 17th and DuPont. About 96% of our scholars are students of color. We fluctuate anywhere from 75 to 85% each year for scholars who qualify for free and reduced lunch. Our cost per scholar, which fluctuates from year to year, is right around $7,200, give or take. But our published full tuition is about $1,400 per year. Our average tuition paid per scholar is closer to about $200 per year. It has long been the position of the parish as well as the school that we don't ever want to turn a family away due to their inability to pay. So we work with all families when they come to us to try to make it a reality for their scholar to be at our school. And it doesn't always work out that way. And having an opportunity for a bill like this that can give additional scholarships to scholars to have a chance to attend our school is just, it's a wonderful idea, and we're extremely excited about it. And so we appreciate you allowing us the opportunity to speak on behalf of this bill. And when I talk to parents and I talk to scholars about their experience in our school, I've heard a lot of folks talk, not just today, but as I travel in the different circles that revolve around education, talking about the environment, the experience, and the relationships that scholars have, that parents have. So, we could talk, of course, about the different statistics, and I know there are a lot of questions about, how successful academically are our schools, and we do a pretty decent job. Ascension's had the fortune of being a pillar in the North Minneapolis community for 120 years, and we've had the great fortune of having some successes, both academically and otherwise. But one of the huge parts of what we're able to do and the impact that we're able to have is due to relationships that we build with families. And we absolutely do not have a monopoly on that. But the way in which we develop those relationships with our families, it's more than just creating a school. It's more than just creating a strong academic environment, but it's really about creating a home and a family for our scholars. And for more families to have an opportunity to make that choice, to be in that kind of environment, is extremely powerful. I talked earlier today, the question was posed about scholars having teachers that look like them in front of them. And only about 12% of our staff in our building are teachers of color, even though our student body is made up of about 96% scholars of color. And the majority of our scholars come from within a several-mile radius of our school, which is located in the heart of North Minneapolis. And I say to scholars often, I see them, and when I see them in our halls, I see parts of me. I see parts of my children in them. And it's extremely personal for me, their success. And the opportunity for families to have a choice, to make a conscious choice of where they want their scholar to be and not have finances be the thing that prevents them from doing that, is extremely powerful. So thank you so much for taking the time to hear our testimony today.
Okay, I'll say my name again. It's Ron Richard. I'm a commercial lender with U.S. Bank, and when Reynolds Anthony had the conversation at the barbershop, I don't have any kids, so you understand. I'm originally from Chicago. We came here when I was about 10 or 11, and I wanted to be involved in that conversation because even though I may not have any children, it's important that the kids around me are getting educated because they grow up to be, the citizens of the area. And to help you understand, I'll just kind of tell you my story instead of just giving facts. I went to De La Salle. That was where I went to Catholic school, De La Salle, over the bridge. And I kind of fell into that because I played basketball. However, as I went to the school, and we talked about this at the barbershop, there was a community that was created at the school. And you felt loved there. When I want to say I was a sophomore, and what one of my teachers did for me is they gave me a book called Lies My Teacher Told Me, because they saw something in me that, hey, he really wants to learn, or he's trying to do this. And what it allowed me to do is to become an autodidactic. So my teacher was saying to me, hey, yes, you have these books here. However, you should be reading on your own and learning and questioning what we're teaching so you can be a free thinker. And what that allowed me to do is I started to read much more outside of school. And it was because I was nurtured going into the school, and they really rallied behind everybody that's there. And I'll also give you this story. My sister, because of my experience going to De La Salle and all the opportunities and the love that they gave me and the community that it provided for me, I wanted my sister to go to De La Salle because I looked at my younger brothers, and they didn't go to a private school. They went to public schools, and they didn't get the discipline that I received there. When I said this at the barbershop as well, is we had homework every day in school, every day, all the time, no matter what class it was always homework. And when you're in that situation, you're upset, I got homework all the time. However, when you go into college, it becomes, it's automatic for you. It's a habit that you have. And to give an example of that, just seeing my sister go through the De La Salle, she's a senior right now. And she's just been accepted to DePaul, Seattle U, the University of Minnesota, Hamlet, and last night she was just accepted to Howard University. She's applied, thank you, appreciate that. She applied to Penn State and Syracuse, and she has a 3.96 average, and she'll be performing in the mock trial this evening at the Government Center downtown Minneapolis. And it has a lot to do, I shouldn't say all, it has a lot to do with where she went to school. And she had that choice because I was able to pay for that myself. But other kids, they don't really have that option. They don't have that choice because they say, okay, well, I have to go because I'm in 55406. I have to go to this school. There's nothing I can do. And they don't have those opportunities. And as Reynolds Anthony said, there's a wave of people wanting to homeschool. Because I'm thinking about it now with my wife as we talk and say, okay, maybe up until 5th grade, we'll do homeschool, because we want to make sure that they're getting the education that we would require so they can move forward. Then we would look at private school. But again, having that option to go to a private school or to go to any school that you want to because you see the education is where your child is going to succeed is so very important. And it's seen in myself. I didn't go to college. I went to college for a couple years, but again, going back to what I said before, my teacher helped me become autodidactic. So I go and I learn on my own. And then I was able to rise within corporate America based off of my discipline and everything I received from them. And now you see my sister and what she's able to do. And it's pretty amazing. So I would say to you, this bill is very, very important because the proof is in the pudding. And we're actually seeing it. So thanks a lot for having us here.
Senator Chamberlain, did you?
I can't add anything to all
Okay.
this, so.
Are there any questions for Senator Chamberlain or the testifiers at this time? Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Compelling stories. Thank you for sharing that. It's great to hear the success that's out there when we look at education. And for me, I'm going to tailor my questions, and it's mostly to you, Mr. Matias. Did I say that right? And especially you're the district, or you're the school principal at Ascension. And we know, serving on Education E12, education is the great equalizer, period, in society. And we know that by the data that's in front of us and has been in front of us and continues to be in front of us. So just for my own curiosity, to see the inclusion that you have of, 96% of your students are students of color. I mean, you got some great records there. But my question is, because when we start talking about these scholarship programs and we talk about tax credit programs, I'm going to ask questions regarding some federal laws that need to be followed and make sure they're followed. And one is a group of students that are always forgot about, and it took an enactment of federal law to make sure that they were included in our conversation. Those are students with disabilities. And that law didn't come into effect until 1975. So I guess my question to you, Benito, or Mr. Matias, did I say that? Is tell me roughly just the percentage of students that you have that might be identified as having a disability or special need, whether it be accommodation under Section 504 of the Rehab Act, and if you do follow that piece of it, kind of, give me an idea of what that looks like in the overall picture and help me understand. Yeah, it's great to have inclusion, but are we really including all students? So what kind of students with special needs do you have? And maybe just to end it, if you have children and youth that are on individual education programs and what that number might be.
Yes, thank you for the question. Very good question. And we absolutely have scholars, probably in the neighborhood of about 15%. And that, of course, fluctuates just like other categories of scholars who would be identified with special needs or have individual education plans. And that ranges everything from academic to emotional, behavioral, et cetera. We certainly are limited in terms of resources that we have to be able to provide those full supports. I will say that Minneapolis Public Schools has been a partner with us in providing some of the supplemental supports for scholars with disabilities in terms of the needs that they have that cannot be provided for within our building. We partner with those folks to provide those services.
Thank you. Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's impressive, 15%. So when you talk about limited resources, would that be in regarding to, I know your building is 2 or 3 stories high, 2 stories, if I remember. My aunt used to teach there like many, many years ago. I won't age who I am, but when you're talking about the limited resources, is it the occupational therapist, physical therapist, speech language people, those that could add the related services within the complexities of an IEP, or what help me understand what the limited resources actually means?
Yes, absolutely. And that, of course, boils down to, for the most part, dollars, right? And when you talk about those different folks who provide those services, we don't have the dollars to provide those staff within our own building. And so if a scholar needs occupational therapy, or if they need to work with a social worker on a consistent basis, or even a special education trained teacher, we don't have any special education teachers, licensed special education teachers in our building. And so we work closely with Minneapolis Public Schools. Scholars who receive those different services then will go to a location within Minneapolis Public Schools to receive some of those services from some of those specialized folks.
One more question. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, what I'll do is I'll say that because I think I'll have a question for the author when we're at the done of testimony. I don't want to take the time, but I appreciate the conversation that this is going. So thank you.
So I'll have a follow-up question. Is it, you've got a number of peer schools, private schools. Is it unusual for private schools to partner with the public schools in order to provide those services, given you've got somewhat lower numbers of enrollment?
It's an excellent question. Thank you. And I'm not exactly sure what some of the other schools have made a decision to do with respect to those resources. I know that it's usually district dependent. And so in Minneapolis district, they partner with non-public schools. Certainly non-public schools have the option to not engage in that partnership. But we, with where we're located and the population that we serve, we feel we'd be doing a disservice to scholars and families who attend our school if we did not partner with someone who could provide those services that we don't provide within our own building. And so we make a conscious choice to partner with Minneapolis Public Schools to help to provide those types of experiences, types of services, types of supports for scholars so that they can have all of the things that they need to be a successful scholar.
And Mr. Matias, can you talk about your graduation rate and your college acceptance rate?
Well, we're a K-8 school, so that's okay. Kindergarten through 8th grade school. But, you know, one of the things that we started tracking literally about 2 years ago, looking at scholars who are graduating from high school, and we're just now getting into trying to find and locate scholars who are with us as 8th graders, what their graduate or their college experience is like, and those graduation rates, et cetera. But what I can tell you is when we looked at scholars who would have been now 5 years ago, graduates of Ascension, and so a year ago, graduates of high school, those who graduated from Ascension graduated from high school at a rate of 100%. In the second class that we're looking at, we're in the range of 96 to 98%. And some folks often will say, well, you're a K-8 school, so what does it matter, the high school graduation rate of your scholars? Well, we like to say and like to think that we have a little something to do with that. Much like when you talk about scholars in high school being prepared for and succeeding in college, we view that much the same way in terms of their preparation when they're with us, kindergarten through 8th grade, or for however many years that they're with us. But when they graduate from Ascension, part of our goal is to make sure that they are prepared to be successful at a rigorous high school, which we then know leads into habit, so that they then can be prepared from a rigorous high school to be successful in college. So although we're not a high school, just some statistics as it relates to scholars moving on to high school and graduating from.
Thank you. Senator Eichhorn.
Mr. Chair, testifier, how do your students do on the MCA exams in comparison to neighboring public schools?
I'm glad you asked. So we actually had an opportunity to talk a little bit about this a little bit earlier. I apologize, technology, when you want it or need it, it doesn't quite work for you. We had some statistics a little bit earlier that we shared with folks. I'll just give you an overview. So we compared schools within the Minneapolis area, both South and North Minneapolis, of which there were about 83 schools. And when we looked at all those schools, which would be private, which would be charter, which would be traditional, public, and we do take the MCAs, 3rd through 8th grade. Our reading scores are right at about 41%. Math scores are right about 49%. And when we looked at the schools that we compared to, we were ranked in the mid-20s for all schools out of all the 83, and in the mid-30s for math. So when we began to then look at schools in terms of the schools in the North Minneapolis or North Side area, we were in the top 10 of those schools in those two categories for MCAs. When we further then looked at schools that had 75% or higher free and reduced lunch, of which I think there were about 53 or so, we were number 1 in reading and number 9 in math. You know, when we look at what some of those statistics are for MCAs, that's how we compare to some of the other schools in our area. And when we look at some of the stats for some of our junior high scholars, the disparity in terms of the proficiency rate of our scholars is much higher than surrounding schools in our area.
Senator Clausen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. I'm old enough to have lived through the 1960s and the civil rights movement. And one of the key elements of that movement was the integration of our schools. And I think that's been a high priority over several decades. I'm just wondering where that fits in your philosophy and the impact of the proposal of Mr. Chamberlain, of Senator Chamberlain, I'm sorry.
Mister's fine.
The impact of that key component, I think, of our American education system, integration of our schools. In fact, public schools, we have integration requirements and a lot of different mandates in that area. And I'm just wondering where that fits in this proposal and in your philosophy of education.
we can each talk about this. The goal at this particular point in time in history, and having been a child that watched the civil rights laws pass, that's how I learned debate early in my life at 10. We believe that it's really important that children get an excellent education. We also believe that it is great if that education can be in a multicultural setting. However, if I have to pick excellence in learning over diversity, I will pick excellence in learning every time. We have schools that are predominantly African American where kids are doing extremely well. I just cited one earlier in my discussion. Why? Because that's a neighborhood school, and kids that come to that school apply to that school and they're accepted. I suppose if a white family decided to drive across town in Milwaukee to apply to St. Marcus, they would certainly be welcome. So we have a range. So what I want to say to you is that what we have seen as we look across the country is that there are examples of excellence in both places. I don't believe that it's useful to put a false measure, and a false measure meaning integration doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the best education, nor does single mean that it's going to be the best education. It's really up to the quality of the facility and the teachers in that building, whether or not they're teaching a class full of 98% Latino students and 10% African American, much like Cristo Rey, where I served on the board for many years, and we graduate students every year that go on. We simply have to focus on quality education. And as much as I would love this goal that was set in the 60s, we have issues that impact people's ability to live in more integrated settings. So that's a nuanced response to your question, and I certainly would invite my colleagues to answer the question. But we're focusing on quality education and advancement of our students, and that's the focus.
I'd just like to remind everybody to, Sarah Clausen, get 2 minutes. Testifiers, please direct your answers back to the chair.
Mr. Chair.
And so I just want to, we have some formality here in the Senate, and
Senator
I want
Pratt, excuse
to
me,
maintain
sorry.
the protocol. So, Mr. Richard, you had a comment?
Sure, I would just echo the same thing he said as far as integration and education. I would choose education over integration all day long, just because education it's not gonna deter you from being able to accept other people. The more educated you are, the more accepting you are. The more times you can sit down with someone and say, okay, you have differences, and actually enjoy those differences. For me, that was part of, I relished the differences because I wanted to learn more, because it was something I didn't know. And if you don't have that education, you're set in this narrow box where if it doesn't fit this mindset, then I can't deal with you. But education takes you out of that box. And so I would, again, echo what he said. It's not about integration, it's about education here.
Thank you, Senator Chamberlain. Senator Clausen.
Mr. Chair, Senator, thank you for the,
Mr. Matias.
thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator, I think it's a huge question and has a lot of implications. And I would just refer back to the way that we engage with our scholars and the conversations that we have with them, and the meaning that it has, that no matter what the person looks like that's across from you, it's really about how you choose to treat others as human beings, frankly. And a lot of times, I know that we're talking about school choice, but even within school choice, for example, we're in North Minneapolis. So the number of scholars that we serve in terms of the percentage of those who are students of color reflect the area with which they come from, within several miles of our school. What we are very intentional about is talking about how they interact with, how they treat other people, because in their educational experience, whether that's at primary school, middle school, high school, college, et cetera, they don't necessarily control the backgrounds and the makeup of the folks that will meet them in that place at that same time. But if they understand that you treat someone as a human being, regardless of what their background is, regardless of their color, et cetera, they then take that and they can transfer that knowledge, they can transfer that humanness, regardless of where they are.
Senator Clausen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In looking at potentially receiving public funds for this bill, would you then take on some of those same responsibilities of public schools? So if you, looking at the public schools in your area, would you take on 35% of special needs students in your schools? Would you take on the requirements for integrating your schools? Would you take on some of those same requirements that public schools have now that you'd be receiving public funds?
Senator Chamberlain.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Clausen. Just a clarification, there are no public funds in this bill. This is private money from Mr. Harris going to a private organization, the scholarship granting organization, to a private institution, the nonprofit, the school, private school, for the use of a private citizen. That money never comes in the general coffers. Private contribution from a private citizen to a private NGO, a private SGO, for a private citizen in a private school. This money never enters into the state treasury. Supreme Court has said this is good, so it never is not public dollars. So I just want to clarify that.
Thank you, Senator Chamberlain. Senator Clausen.
Well, I think it's debatable about how you look at it, but I'd still like an answer to my question, please.
So your Mr. Chair, Senator Clausen, the question was?
The question is, if indeed, excuse me, if indeed your bill would be placed in effect, the schools then that are receiving, or the parents that are receiving the funds, would those schools take on the same requirements that the public schools about integration, about looking at the percentage of special needs students that would be attending their school? Would they provide the same needs and openness of other students that would be attending? We've already heard that some of the needs of some students can't be met in some of the schools that these gentlemen represent. They rely upon the public schools. And yet the numbers that I just heard certainly don't reflect what public schools in that location of the city reflect. If you're looking at students that have disabilities, special needs, the percent is much higher than 15% in the public schools in those areas. So my question is, would you be open then to also making your schools look like public schools in terms of integration? How many white students, how many black students, how many Hispanic students, and then how many students would you be looking at that have special needs? You know, would you take on those same responsibilities is what I'm saying.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Chamberlain.
Mr. Chair, Senator Clausen, for clarification, we understand and know that current law says public and private schools, as Mr. Matias has pointed out, can work together to manage the special needs students. But I'm going to repeat over and over and over and over and over again, private, 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 private. These monies never enter into the public treasury. If you wish to make these public schools, then we would take the public money. So the intent is not to turn them into public schools. I go back to something Mr. Harris has said and has been repeated by Mr. Richards and Mr. Matias, is that as far as integration, we're looking for options for quality education for all children in this state. Currently, many of their needs are not being met in the public schools. We talk about meeting the needs in integration and all these other mandates. They are meeting the needs of students who hadn't had their needs met and are not having their needs met in the Minneapolis-St. Paul public school system, as well as schools across the state. So, no, these are not going to be public schools. That's not the intent. The intent is to help children and families with outcomes. And I'll end with this, is that there are many schools across this country, many examples, Crystal Ray being one locally, that have achieved great results for their kids. without all the encumbrances of public schools. Ms. Matias has pointed out that they look at this holistically as humanness, as people being human, and dealing with these problems as they see fit and as best they can. So I have a lot of confidence and a lot of trust in people who are running these private schools and these organizations to take care of every child that wants to get into their school. So a lot of confidence and trust in them. They do, I've seen these schools do good work. Many people have been to these schools to see the results. And they need an option. They need something different than what the current public schools offer. That is the basis of this legislation. So I'll turn it over for comments here.
I want to also, thank you, Mr. Chair. This actually does help parents that have kids with special needs. If we have a colleague who had her son in a Minneapolis school, and child loved school, and suddenly in second grade didn't want to go in the building. I won't go into all of the detail, but I'll tell you that they fought hard, and the information that they received from the public school was a solution, which was to move to medication. That is a hot issue in our community for a number of reasons. I don't need to repeat the history here, but we have heard from parents that if their child is overactive, the solution is medication. That is something that simply will not fly in our community. And so what's happened is people have talked to one another. And I will tell you that the Groves Academy, which has special capacity to deal with students with special needs. And the parents have told us, I know my child's a special need child, but I'm not even getting what I think I deserve in the public context because they don't understand my child. So I want to send my child to a school where they specialize in dealing with some of those issues. So this is not just for students that are going to end up with the 4-year degree. This could be for students with a special need that could end up with a 4-year degree, or students with special needs where they're going to feel treated much more humanely. So no, I believe that we leave it where it is. We give parents the capacity to go find the best resources for the need of the child, and that is the measurement of success. Did you find a place for your child where they're being treated well and you feel satisfied and the child feels satisfied?
Mr. Richards, did you have a comment?
Sure, Mr. Chair, Senator. I would say that you don't need a special mandate when you have choice. Kind of similar to what Reynolds Anthony was saying. When you have a choice, you get involved and you say, okay, well, they're not providing what I need. I'm going to search and find what I can get for my child. When you don't have that choice, you just kind of move it to the side and say, okay, this is my lot. I have to deal with that. And I would say at De La Salle, it's extremely diverse. You know, we had the whole spectrum of people there. And it was because the school was of excellence and people wanted to be there no matter what race, creed, where you were at. I mean, if you didn't have to be Catholic to be there, but you wanted to be there because you wanted that education, you wanted that preparation, you wanted that environment, you wanted that love, you wanted that community. And I think by mandating something, it takes away that flavor of, hey, we want to go here because it's good.
Let me get one more follow-up.
Thank you.
Senator Clausen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Chamberlain, you mentioned, you know, these are private dollars. They are, that's true, but it is money that's public money that's going for other purposes. And we've been talking about the Wisconsin voucher program. Just a couple facts. Annually, $150 million in public dollars is spent on 100 schools in Milwaukee. Average each school receives $1.5 million in public dollars for education. Over the past 25 years, vouchers have been in place. Wisconsin has spent $1.7 billion of public dollars, okay, public dollars on private education. And I appreciate, gentlemen, you responding to my questions, and thank you again for being here.
Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first, if I can just ask a quick procedural question, because I know we've got a lot of testifiers and we're going to run out of time. What is the goal for the bill today, and what is the path it would be taking if it passes out of committee?
The goal for the bill, if it passes out of committee, would be a referral to Education Finance, and then eventually to taxes.
Okay. Thank you. Now may I make my more substantive
Senator
question?
Kent. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to sort of piggyback on what Senator Clausen has said, I mean, the reality is tax dollars are public dollars. Individuals and businesses get tax dollars and benefits as a reward for the contributions that they are making. In the bill, Senator Chamberlain, you specify the $35 million tax credit that goes with the scholarships. I'm pretty sure there's not a revenue note that has been developed yet for the tax credit part for families, but the estimates that I've heard are that it's about $30 million. And my question for you is, will that money come out of your budget, Mr. Chair, in the tax committee?
Mr. Chair, Senator Kent, thanks. The revenue note is $35 million because $35 million is the limit of the credits that will be available. Again, I'm going to repeat, private dollars from a private person to a private organization, for a private individual to a private organization. This is not public money. We give $300 million, $3 billion of tax credits and expenditures in this state. So credits and exemptions and deductions are not new to this state. In a perfect world, they wouldn't exist. We don't live in a perfect world, so they exist. And this option is constitutional. We can get into that at some point. Supreme Court has ruled such as late as 2011. This is not a question anymore, according to them. So there's no other revenue now. It's a $35 million credit. And will it come out of the budget? It's a $35 million credit, so it reduces funds available, sure.
Thank you.
Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You have actually started a great conversation, because I don't want to get stuck on the fact that, you know, a tax credit actually reduces the amount of taxes owed. So one could probably argue that that premised first piece of that argument is that that would have been money owed. Well, I want to set that aside, because what I'm hearing here, and you brought this up too, and maybe this is for a deeper discussion, I'd really like to spend a lot of time on this. And honorable attentions aside, the great equalization of education is there because of due process rights that occurred because people weren't getting those educational components that were important. That's why, you know, Article 13 in our state constitution talks about the general and uniform aspect of education. So I guess as we talk about this, Mr. Chair, you know, where are the safeguards for People Fair Dismissal Act? Where are the safeguards for due process for parents? Where's the admission criteria that's there? Right now, if a student shows up in a public school doorstep, you have to take that child. I mean, that's embedded in our being, in our culture in Minnesota. And so as we look at that, I guess those are some questions that I want to stem out of this, and you're raising some good points with this conversation, but it's still, one could argue it is public, and I'm not going to get into the debate on the tax side of it because I can't do that, but I can get into the debate on the educational rights side of it because I can do that. So I do raise some concerns on this as we look forward. I appreciate the testimony and the great stories here and the fact that Ascension is doing 15%, which it aligns itself. I'd like to see a little deeper on just what that means, but it really raises some of those flags. What are my due process rights as a parent? What are my due process rights as a student? Am I going to follow the People Fair Dismissal Act? And I don't know if that's a question that we want to delve into now or that's what we wait after the other people are done testifying, Mr. Chair, but thank you.
Well, thank you for the compliment, Senator Hoffman, but any deeper conversation was entirely accidental and coincidental, so.
Mr. Chair, may I make one quick comment?
Yes, Senator Chamberlain.
And then I think Mr. Matias will comment. Look, folks, the schools, the evidence is out there. The evidence is out there. the schools are in trouble. There are good schools out there and great educators. And I am with Mr. Harris, Mr. Matias, and Mr. Richards. This is not a blame game. This is not a blame game. I'm not here to blame anybody. I'm saying, we're saying, they're saying, majority of Minnesotans are saying, it is time to do something different for these kids. To leave them in these schools in Minneapolis and St. Paul that are failing, or anywhere from War Road to Faribault, is criminal. They have not improved at all. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. But this is about opportunity that hasn't existed for these kids for over a decade. To say no is to sentence them to another decade of failure. And I don't think any one of you up there or in that legislature in this state of Minnesota wants to do that. But that's what you're doing. This is about kids and outcomes. There have been no outcomes in this state for a lot of kids. Some kids are better off, but a lot of kids are stuck and they're suffering. So who's going to hold them accountable? You've been tying up the schools and the educators for decades with bureaucracy and mandates and encumbering with all kinds of silly laws and rules until they can't see and they're choking on it. So who's going to hold them accountable? The parents. I have seen this over and over again across this country. Stories and books. We had to stop being in denial here. This is about kids. It's not about money. It's not about the bureaucracy. It's not about the laws. It's about the kids. And the parents will hold those schools accountable because they have and everything else. So with that, Mr. Matias has a follow-up.
Mr. Matias.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator, for your comments. I'd just like to mention from the Twin Cities, born and raised in Minneapolis, and I attended Olson when it was a grade school. I attended Franklin Middle School in North Minneapolis, and I'm a proud graduate of Patrick Henry High School in Minneapolis. At that time, when our parents were enrolling us in school, of which I have 13 siblings, by the way, there was no choice. So when we talk about accountability, we talk about choice for families. Whatever my educational experience was at Olson, they couldn't enroll me in a different school. Whatever my experience was at Franklin, they couldn't move me. Whatever my experience was at Patrick Henry, they didn't have the choices to move me. And so when we talk about some of the accountability components, I mean, one of the reasons why there are so many school choices today is because every school is not the best fit for every scholar. And when parents make a conscious choice to place their children, for anyone who has children, that's the most precious thing in your life. So when you have the choice to place your child in a school, whether you have the wherewithal or the background or the education, et cetera, to get down into the weeds about what the expectations are that you have for your child, you have a deep felt, heartfelt passion for wanting the best for your child. And with that kind of passion, in whatever way you are accustomed to, you help to make sure to hold your child's school accountable. And we experience that with our parents all of the time. They want to be involved in their child's education. They want to be a part of that process. And as a school, we're willing and open to having those conversations because we don't believe that we have all of the answers. We don't believe that they drop their child off to us at 7 o'clock in the morning. We do with them what we will, and we hand them back to them at 5:30 in the evening. That's not how it works in our building. And so parents are very much a part of the process of holding us accountable in the things that they expect that we are doing with their children. And so I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Matias. I'm going to use the chair's prerogative here. We've gone about an hour of testimony. We have a long list of testifiers, so I'd like to move on to the other testifiers. And members expect to go past, well past 4:30. So first on the list, we have Minnesota Association of School Administrators. And why don't we just invite up Minnesota School Boards Association, so Ms. Dozlin and Ms. Kelleher.
So they'll send Chamberlain.
Thank you, and welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Valerie Doslin. I represent the Minnesota Association of School Administrators. First of all, I'd like to thank Senator Chamberlain for the conversation we were able to have yesterday. While we do have differences of opinions, I think it's good that we can all come together to hear each other's differences of opinions, and I think our conversation yesterday was reflectful of that. So thank you, Senator Chamberlain. I am here today, however, to say that MASA is opposed to this legislation. We are opposed to extending tax credits, deductions, or vouchers for private school tuition. And I'd like to clear the air a little bit today. I've heard a lot of things about what public schools are not doing today. I'm here, first of all, to say I am very proud of our public schools in Minnesota. Our public schools and superintendents and school boards and teachers are very well aware of the achievement gap and are working very hard to try to close that achievement gap. I encourage every single one of you to reach out to your superintendents. Go to your school districts. Find out what they are doing. And yes, there is an achievement gap, but public schools are not ignoring that. I heard some things today regarding there's really great needs. Public schools have very great needs. Special ed reimbursement is woefully inadequate. We have over $600 million cross-subsidy and unfunded special ed requirements for school districts. That's almost $670 per pupil. The per pupil formula has not kept up with inflation. If the per pupil formula has kept up with inflation, that would be another additional $550 per pupil. That's $1,200. Lastly, public schools are must accept every student, regardless of what level of education they've had, where they came from, regardless of their special ed disability. Private schools are not held to that same limit. For instance, one school we heard about today, a student who applies to the school has to provide a copy of a 7th and 8th grade report card, a copy of their standardized test scores, 3 letters of evaluation, one from the teacher evaluation 8th grade language arts and 8th grade math. They must have a community leader evaluation completed by a principal, counselor, or employer. They also must have an interview. What that tells me is that private school can say to a student, I'm sorry, you don't meet our qualifications. Public schools do not get to do that. I looked up the website for a public school to see what their requirements are for attendance and application. All students are welcome. And while we do disagree with Senator Chamberlain, and I do respect his goal and his intent, but I think MASA believes before we consider this legislation, we need to make sure that our public schools are adequately funded. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Doslin. Ms. Keller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. My name is Grace Kelleher, and I represent the Minnesota School Boards Association. We represent all elected school board members from around the state. This brings in metro, suburban, and rural school districts. And MSBA has had a long-standing position that opposes any new legislation requiring education funds for non-public schools and opposes tuition tax credits for attendance in private elementary and secondary schools. I started back with the Constitution because our forebears were very wise when they put things down, and I'm always so proud to read the section about a uniform system of public schools. And I will start in the middle. It's a duty of the legislature to establish a general and uniform system of public schools. The legislature shall make provision by taxation or otherwise as will secure a thorough and efficient system of public schools around the state. But that goes on to Section 2, and we often don't talk about that one. It is a prohibition to aiding a sectarian school. In no case shall any public money or property be appropriated or used for support of schools wherein the distinctive doctrines, creeds, and tenets of any Christian or other religious sect are promulgated or taught. Pretty clear. Some of the concerns as we looked at this bill and went through, it will harm public schools. And I know you've had a feeling that, it's sort of segregated, it's off in the corner, how can it impact us? But in fact, if we have students moving from school to school within our district, We can find that we have transportation issues, facility issues, staff issues, about students who come and go in the middle of the year. It's not something we can easily take on without a lot of forethought because of our legislative mandates. While I talk about mandates, let me encourage you to analyze that maybe the legislature has really held public schools back over the years. And let me just give you a flavor for some of the things we have to deal with. By law, schools must allow collective bargaining in good faith. We must meet layoff timelines. We must meet the world's best workforce requirements. We must fund elite pension funds. We must provide employee health insurance as dictated by law. We have data practices requirements. We have to follow open meeting laws. We have state and federal special education requirements. We have facility requirements. We have allowable fees. We have school bus requirements. We even have the number of acres you have to build a school district on. We have staff development, which is 2% of our general education revenue. We are going to have new ESSA federal requirements coming forward. We have to report with the UFARS accounting system to the department so they can track our expenditures. And we follow the fair pupil dismissal law. I could have brought our policy book to share with you how many policies school districts have. I'll just show you. I thought it might be a little bit better. About that large is what we come to deal with on a daily basis. In the bill directly, we have some concerns. And the first are, we believe public schools or private schools are not accountable to state and local achievement standards as are public schools. The bill would create an accountability system which would measure effectiveness by the total number of students who receive a scholarship. I wish I could have those kinds of effectiveness standards, and that you can find on 9.7. This bill would give ongoing inflationary increases for income thresholds and credit amounts. That's something school districts have asked for years and years and years. It's about a $500 million piece that we lose just by inflation from year to year that we've got to make up. We also feel that there is a problem, that in fact, if you had a problem with a school or a kid in a bad situation in a school, where do you go with that? Do you call the Commissioner of Education? Do you call the Commissioner of Revenue? How do you handle problems that might arise in this scenario? And the foundations, same question. If you remember charter school authorizers, we really went back and forth trying to craft that right law and language to make this work. These foundations are very similar, yet the requirements here are much less. And I think whenever we're creating sort of another level of government on which we'll funnel money in and funnel money out, we need to be really sure it's done well. And with that, I wanted just you to give you a feeling. Now, this scholarship piece can be used for all kinds of private and religious schools. So I did a quick look around to try to get a feel. The Blake School, which is a favorite around this area, is yearly tuition is $29,025. The average composite score is 1390 on the SAT, and the ACT is reported as 31. What they advertise to people who are looking at it is they send kids to four-year colleges, and they list three of them: the University of Wisconsin, the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, and Stanford. What you will find woefully lacking from that list is the idea that a certification process could be important, vocational training, that whole other gamut school districts provide that are not what these schools are being targeted for. And last but not least, I want to ask you to do what Valerie has suggested. Reach out to your superintendent, reach out to your school board. Ask the tough questions of them. This is really a big deal, and Senator Chamberlain has done his best to work with us and listen to us, but it is a big deal to us. And my members feel it's one of those lines in the sand that we stand for, and it's time for our school board members to stand proud on this issue, and we are proud of what we're doing every day. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'll just ask if there are any questions of the testifiers. Okay, thank you. Next on the list is Education Minnesota, Ms. Weedland, Quatone, and Dietrich. I hope I pronounced it right. Welcome to the committee.
It is rarely pronounced correctly.
Please state your name for the record before you
My
testify,
name is
please.
Christy Wideline. It would be like the last potential pronunciation of that spelling, so I'm okay. Wide line like broad stripe. So, thank you for having me today. It's been an interesting day for me, away from my students. My name is Christy Wideline, and I've been a teacher for 20 years, which is where I expect all of you to say, but she doesn't look that old. I am a teacher currently with the Anoka Hennepin School District, and I teach at Regional High School, which is an alternative high school. I have taught in my 20 years every grade from kindergarten through 12th grade, and that is because I'm an ESL teacher. And I'm going to share with you about one of my students. But first, I want to talk a little bit about my current students. My current students are in an alternative setting, which alternative ed has an interesting reputation. But by and large, my students have extreme mental health needs. Some of them have academic needs as well. But overwhelmingly, what I have learned is it's their mental health needs that are the most striking. And it is these mental health needs that are not currently being serviced in most private and charter schools. I'm not saying all. I'm not saying there aren't some that aren't willing to take my kids. But by and large, the only place for kids that I work with every day and the ones that I left lesson plans for today are in public school. I am also an adjunct professor, and I work with other teachers who are working on their degrees in differentiated instruction. And so I want you to know that there is a huge commitment from university all the way down to really reaching kids and teaching them in the best way we know how, and differentiating that instruction as much as we can, because that is what public schools do. I would like to tell you a little bit about a student of mine, Carlos. I worked with him a couple years ago, and I had the honor of being his ESL teacher when he was in 4th and 5th grade. When I met Carlos, he was, quite frankly, an undocumented immigrant from Honduras. He is quite simply the most linguistically gifted student I have ever met. When I met him, he didn't know all of his letters, but it clearly became apparent that if he learned one word, he could manipulate that word. He could take a noun and make it into a verb. He had a level of language competency that I have never seen, and I doubt anyone of us in the room could match. He had a commitment to do his very best, and he and I, when he was in 5th grade, we were talking about what his plans were, and he talked about going to college, and he talked about owning a business. And that future is the exact thing I hear about what we want for our country, and certainly what we want for our state. Strong, bilingual, but small business owners. And that is the students. I look at Carlos as a 4th grader. Again, a charter and a private school wouldn't have been open to him. So I ask you to keep in mind that I have absolutely no problem with people choosing to take their students to any school they want. But if we're going to give a tax credit to some, that does hurt Carlos. And there are a lot of Carloses. There are Carloses in every district in this state. So thank you very much. And we have other great speakers.
Hello.
Please.
My name is Tiffany Dietrich, and I'm honored to have the opportunity to speak before your committee today and express my opposition to the education bill that Senator Chamberlain has introduced and to the greater proposition of the voucherization of education in the state of Minnesota. I'm a grateful recipient of a public education in rural northern Minnesota, and I'm very proud to be the first to graduate from college in my family. This year marks my 20th year as an educator in the White Bear Lake School District, where I was honored to serve as Teacher of the Year in 2001. Throughout my career, I've been a passionate advocate for my students and my profession, which is what has brought me here today. To my mind, the present push toward voucherizing education across our country represents the greatest threat to equitable educational opportunity that we have seen in recent history. While proponents of this system tout them as a means through which low-income families can gain access to quality education, vouchers rarely offer the kind of financial support that truly allows access for these families. The underlying assumption in this assertion is that students do not receive quality public education in our public schools. I will concede that there are certainly issues that must be addressed in our current system. Yet, if equitable access is truly our goal, our time and money will be much better spent to reform the present system rather than removing funding and creating greater impediments for our public schools. Vouchers offer the illusion of equity while perpetuating de facto segregation, which, while it may not always be racial in nature, most certainly is socioeconomic. They divert valuable resources from public schools, hurting low-income schools, as well as schools in outstate Minnesota. And many of these schools violate the separation of church and state inherent to the Constitution. Furthermore, private schools that receive taxpayer dollars through voucher and tax credit programs are not scrutinized in the same manner as our public schools. They frequently operate with little oversight, minimal academic and financial reporting requirements, and often require lower standards of teacher preparation. As a public school educator, I've long struggled with comparisons made between the success of private schools and charter schools compared to the success of our students in public schools. Truth be told, such comparisons are like comparing apples to oranges. Data is presented without acknowledging that these schools have the ability to turn away students. It's seldom revealed that they are not held to the same standards when it comes to ensuring that students receive English language supports, special education services, or access to school transportation. Please note that the sense of community, love, discipline, and rigor that those who testified earlier mentioned is not unique to the private school experience. I am surrounded every day by passionate educators who hold their students to high standards, nurture their spirits, celebrate and cultivate their many wonderful assets. Whether deemed scholarship programs, tuition tax credits, or any of a variety of other names, the underlying aim of bills like this is the voucherization of education. Vouchers are not the solution. So, what do we do instead? We do the hard work to bolster the longstanding tradition of public education in the United States. We ease the burdens that have been put on public schools that the senator mentioned and have stymied their progress in many ways. We double down on recruiting and retaining educators of color in our schools, and we fully fund full-service community schools that we know work. I'm proud of the fact that our country is unique in that it provides access to free, quality public education for all students. And it is my sincere belief that the voucher system will greatly undermine and could even eradicate that. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Mr. Quitone?
Musical chairs. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members, for having me here today. My name is Tucker Quitone. I'm from Rochester, Minnesota. Been teaching in the Rochester Public Schools since 1992. I am originally from Oklahoma, a tribal member there of the Cherokee Nation and the Kiowa Nation. Coming to Minnesota and teaching here has given me a great respect for the commitment that you've given in the past to public education. I've been very proud to be a teacher in the public schools here in Minnesota and proud that my 6 children went through the Rochester Public Schools. I'm also currently the president of the Rochester Education Association, and I work on several committees at Education Minnesota, one being the Ethnic Minorities Affairs Committee. And I've also become involved with the Community Schools Network. And I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about the community schools effort as an alternative to what we've been talking about today with the vouchers and tax deductions. We support and advocate for full-service community schools And we're pleased that in 2015, Minnesota became the first state in the nation to enact a strong state law defining and supporting full-service community schools. Rochester was fortunate to get some of that seed money, and we have now 3 community schools in Rochester. So I thank you for that. Full-service community schools are a school improvement option and a place-based strategy. Many sites develop or strengthen public and private partnerships that bring health, family, or cultural resources into the school. It's a bottom-up school improvement strategy that places the needs of low-income students and students of color at the center of school improvement decision-making. Voucher and private school scholarships don't use a racial equity framework like our full-service community schools do. I'm proud to say that the members of the Rochester Education Association are working hard with parents and our community to confront unjust barriers. We've listened to parents, businesses, civic leaders. We work with the Mayo Clinic and our social service providers and the Olmsted County United Way. We've heard loud and clear that our rapidly diversifying Rochester community will invest in school improvement efforts that unite us in our efforts to close opportunity gaps, not in schemes that will further divide us along race and class lines. That's why our community is united behind the full-service community school strategy to address barriers to student success. During the 2016 legislative session, our Rochester Superintendent Michael Munoz and Olmsted County Way President Jerome Ferson testified in support of additional state investment in full-service community schools. I'm happy to report that because of your investment, our full-service community school plan has taken off and is showing promising results. Just last night, I was at a meeting, and our community schools coordinator commented on a couple of things. One, just in the last 6 months, comparing our data with school discipline, our school referrals have been cut in half in the first half of the year compared to last year in our community schools. And the other thing was at the last parent meeting, the parents who showed up really reflected the school body and the different mix of students. So it was great to see the parents feel like they belong there. You know, many of our families now are immigrant families, and I, as an American Indian, work with many of our American Indian parents and families. And when they come to Rochester, and many of them come there for extended medical care at the Mayo Clinic, if they come from a reservation community, it's very hard to navigate a new community like Rochester. It seems big to them. What they really appreciate is a local neighborhood school where they can get the resources that they need. And that's what the community school does. It provides a one-stop shop for those families who don't know how to navigate a system of choices. They depend on that public school to provide that for them. Just to conclude, I appreciate your committee and others that are grappling with the best ways to solve complex problems and close opportunity gaps. I can tell you that our entire Rochester community will thank you for choosing common sense solutions with proven results. And we now know, thanks to your past support, that full-service community schools get results. I invite you to come to Rochester and visit anytime. I'm sure our Senator Carla Nelson would be glad to show you around. So thank you for your time today.
Well, we know Senator Nelson is extremely proud of Rochester. So, Senator Chamberlain, you had a comment?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members. So just a couple of quick things. One is a clarification again. This isn't a voucher system. We're not taking public money and giving a voucher to a kid to go to any school that he chooses. This money, again, never enters the state treasury, but so it is not a voucher. It's not a voucher in the way people are thinking about it. It's a credit program for kids and families to give them options and opportunities. Secondly, quickly, is that, again, I repeat again, this isn't a blame game. There are great teachers out there, and there's some great schools. But the fact remains, the ones that are stuck in the bad ones, they don't have the financial wherewithal to get out. We're trying to help them. And lastly, is that one thing doesn't preclude the other from happening. It doesn't have to be a single-track thing. We can do both. We can do the reforms in the schools. I've been asking for 6 years so we can get going with it. I agree with the testifiers that they're burdened with a lot of regs and bureaucracy and mandates. So just because we do one thing doesn't mean we can't reform the other, but it's critical that these kids have opportunities. And just to repeat, these are not vouchers, they are credits, and it's not even close to a voucher.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, in the interest of time, and we do have a number of testifiers, some of these points have already been made. I'm hoping that we can sort of keep going forward.
Well, certainly, I think Senator Chamberlain in his bill certainly has the opportunity to try to redirect. And Senator Hoffman, you had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And teachers, thank you. Nice to see you. The work at Anoka Hennepin, we've closed the achievement gap. I mean, we really have worked hard and put our due diligence in way, and we've offered both the following of the People Fair Dismissal Act, Due Process Rights, Title IX, special education and/or related services. We follow all those things in our areas, both the Osseo and Anoka Hennepin. So it's nice to see you again, Christine, and to know what you guys are doing on the alternative, the choices that are there. So it's always good to get somebody homegrown. I just had to say that so Senator Pratt would hear Anoka Hennepin once again without having to make any other kinds of, all right. Anyway, I'm just saying.
Senator Hoffman, we're going to start charging you for advertising.
I know you love it. Thank you, teachers, for your hard work. I really do appreciate that. And I guess I'm not going to debate whether or not the tax credits are or not vouchers. I just wanted to thank the teachers very much for their hard work out there, and all public school teachers. But I guess one of the things that I got out of this, Mr. Chair, and the theme is that they talked about following those things that I talked about, the due process rights of students. And I don't see anything in this bill, and I'm going to raise that up as another caution or another concern that I have, that I'm not seeing anything there that says we're going to follow Title IX, we're going to follow Title V, we're going to follow 504, the Rehab Act, we're going to follow those. So let me just throw that out, and I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you, Senator Hoffman. Are there any other questions for the testifiers? Well, let me just say, a number of us have dedicated a fair amount of our time to the public school system and our local public schools. We know that having a great teacher in the classroom is the most effective, most telling factor of any student's success. So thank you for your service to our students. Next we have Association of Metropolitan School Districts, Mr. Kronquist. And why don't we also invite up SEIU Local 264, Ms. Rostat. Thank you and welcome to the committee, Mr. Kronquist.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. My name is Scott Kronquist with the Association of Metropolitan School Districts. Appreciate the time to offer just a few remarks, and we'll try to keep them brief because a number of the points that I was going to make have already been made, so recognizing Senator Kent's comment. I do want to thank Senator Chamberlain for having an open discussion with us, and we certainly respect and appreciate his passion, and we're all trying to, I think, get at the same issue in terms of let's solve the achievement gap, and we just have a disagreement about the best way to get there, I guess. But I'm going to just try to keep it to, I want to clarify a couple of things. Number one, I understand the semantical argument, if you will, over whether or not these are public dollars. And I certainly agree that there is a difference between a direct voucher and a tax credit. But we would, I guess, make the point that the reason there is a revenue note prepared for this bill is because that is identifying money that would otherwise be in the state treasury, right, absent the credit. So we do think that there's money that would otherwise be available for public schools, transportation, environment, you name it, a whole host of issues that money could otherwise be spent on. The other point I would just like to make is that we've heard evidence from the previous testifiers. We are lucky in Minnesota. We have a great system of public schools, and we have a great system of private schools. They both do phenomenal things. The first testifiers that were spoken in favor had great success stories, and you all know you have public schools in your own districts that could bring forward testifiers and offer the same identical testimony about the amazing things they're doing. it really comes down to we have two different models, a public and a private, right? And there are advantages of each. Our public schools do receive public funding, but with that funding comes a lot of strings. And you all know that. And you come every year and you talk about how we're going to tweak those strings, right? What we're going to change in terms of accountability, assessments. But you have great control over our public schools. Even though we're a local control state, our state legislature really dictates a lot of areas of how those schools operate. Our private schools do not receive a lot of public funding, although I think many people are surprised to know that over $70 million actually from the state treasury does go to our private schools each year in terms of helping with transportation and textbooks and nursing and counseling and services like that. But they do have to rely on most of their funding from private sources. On the other hand, they have incredible freedom, right? There are very few strings. You do not tell them how they have to operate, how they have to function. And they do not have to accept all students that show up at their door. So it's two different models, two different systems. They're both doing great things, but we think that we should really keep one public and one private. So I'm going to stop at that, Mr. Chair and members. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Rolstad.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senators. My name's Valerie Rolstad, and I want to make a clarification. It's SEIU Local 284. And I'm a special ed educational assistant in the Columbia Heights School District for the past 20 years. And I'm here to support public schools and to oppose, however you want to call it, scholarship voucher, this bill in this hearing. I'm also a mother. I have 3 young adult children now that have all graduated, but were third generation public school in the same school. My mother graduated from Heights, I graduated from Heights, my children graduated from Heights. And through that, we've seen both the good and the challenges that the public schools, when they're properly funded. My middle daughter in elementary was struggling, and so in 5th grade, she was able to have some interventions, figure out what was going on, and get on an IEP. By 8th grade, she was out. She was done. She achieved. She had the support in the classrooms. She's now a voracious reader, and she's a world learner. So this shows that public schools can work when funded. 4 years later, my son, my youngest, has been on an IEP since he was 3 because of speech and also learning disabilities. Unfortunately, our school systems was being defunded or underfunded, and so throughout his education, he wasn't getting the support in the classrooms because there were so much cuts. Our unit for our special ed paraprofessionals went from 60 plus down to 30, and I think even at one point 20 paraprofessionals that were servicing our special needs children. No student should have to struggle to get the support they need. I'm an involved parent, and I fought hard to work with the teachers. But even with good teachers and involved parents, our current system isn't funded in a way that provides all of the supports that are needed. Now we're hearing about taking tens of millions, 35, whatever the number is, from public schools to go to unaccountable private schools. Why aren't we having a conversation about supporting our public schools? Why are public schools being demonized? Every day I see our teachers and support staff walk through their doors to work hard to provide world-class education, but the challenges that we face are greater than the resources we receive. We need to have an honest conversation about how to fix this. We can't be taking money from our schools to fill the hole in the dike, because we know that once that hole's filled, another one's going to open. We've been playing that game for too long now. My children deserve to have a good education, and all the children of Minnesota deserve better. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the testifiers? Mr. Olstad, I just want to say, I know paras are overworked and underappreciated, so thank you for your service to our students.
Thank you.
Next, we have Schools for Equity in Education, Mr. Lundell, and Minnesota Rural Education Association, Mr. Nolan.
Mr. Chair,
Lundell.
members of the committee, Brad Lundell from Schools for Equity in Education. We're a 60-member organization with districts located both in the metro and non-metro area of Minnesota. Just briefly, I think Mr. Kronquist stole my comments. We've had a long-standing opposition to public money going for private education. I think that, Senator Chamberlain is correct. There's no direct link here between money going from the public coffers to private education. But as my old boss, and I guess my old boss is that Leroy Stumpf used to laugh because he was here when my old boss was here, but you can only spend $1 once, and every dollar that's not collected and put into, every dollar that goes to these credits will not be able to go to, as Mr. Kronquist said, variety of causes and variety of programs that you all have on your priority list. So I think that that's the one thing that we're looking at. And I think the other thing that I would point out is there are two separate, I was talking to House staff about this, two very separate issues here. The one is the tuition for private school, credit for private school tuition, and the other is the tax credit angle, or the contribution angle. And I think those are two very separate issues that need to be looked at separately. They don't, to me, they don't quite mesh as cleanly as they probably should. But I do think that there are two things there that need to be looked at and probably can be dealt with separately. But I also want to thank Senator Chamberlain for coming forward with this bill and having this discussion. Also want to recognize the strong testimony that came from members of from the community today supporting this bill. Certainly, we all share their goal to make sure that every student in the state of Minnesota gets the education to which they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan.
Yes, I want to thank the committee. I'm Fred Nolan, the Executive Director of the Minnesota Rural Education Association. We're the only advocate exclusively for greater Minnesota schools and students, and I want to thank you for extending your time to hear a rural perspective on this issue. The perspective comes from a study that'd be a great summer read for you called Why Rural Schools Matter. And it talks about the difference between schools in rural communities and schools in urban communities, which you've heard quite a bit about this today. I want to quote from it, that rural schools are a public place more encompassing than the church or civic organizations that bring communities together. They lend the identity that keeps communities on the map. When they close, not much remains. The message is starkly plain. No school, no community. Therefore, when you're making tax policy and funding policy and other policies around education, we'd like you to think about ways that strengthen rural schools, their communities, and their students, and not divide them by sending students, in this particular case, by encouraging and sending students to different directions and even to schools in neighboring states. So for those reasons, we oppose this legislation. We thank the discussion and bringing it forward. You heard, as Brad just said, we all agree on the goals. But in rural communities, the public school is the center of the community. And so we would hope instead you'd look at ways that the formula can be used to support rural students, their schools, and communities. Thank you for this time.
Thank you. Are there any questions for testifiers? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Mr. Nolan. Senator Chamberlain, any closing remarks?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and members and testifiers. Again, I will repeat myself a little bit here, but it bears repeating what first testifiers have mentioned. This is not a blame game. It's not. Nobody's demonizing schools, but there's a problem out there that we can't deny. Whether it's in War Road or inner city Minneapolis or in Woodbury. There are students that are not having their needs met, plain and simple. There's a lot of reasons for that. I'd like to address them all, and I make commitments to anybody who cared to come and talk to me before this. that I'm committed, and a lot of people in this chamber are committed to addressing the equity issues, debt and levy and property tax issues out there in the rural community, and stabilizing the rural community. We're committed to that, but things have changed. Time has come to address the situation for new solutions and offer new opportunities to these kids across the state that are stuck. So I ask that you consider that. I understand and I've heard the testifiers. I agree with it. But one line of action does not preclude another. So I ask that we consider that and the opportunities ahead of us and the challenges that are facing these kids. They don't have all that time. They only get, somebody said you can only spend $1 once. Kids only in 4th grade once or kindergarten once. We tried a lot of other things over the years. It's time for something new. Time has come for these kids to start something new and give them opportunities. So, Mr. Chair, with that, I would ask that this be referred to the Education Finance Committee.
Thank you, Senator Chamberlain. Senator Kent.
Mr. Chair, just a quick procedural question, because this is our first bill, and it's the first time I've thought about this in a few months. Would this not be referred to full finance, so that then it could be referred to Education Finance?
Education Finance is not a division of full finance. It's a standalone committee. So it'll eventually end up in taxes or full finance. I'm sure Senator Chamberlain's knows the pathway to that. Senator Chamberlain, can you?
Well, after it goes to K-12 finance, it will go to tax, and then from there, I would presume if finance wants it, they will get it. But in tax, we will decide where it goes. That'll be the last stop, and then we'll decide where it goes.
Any additional questions for Senator Chamberlain? Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Chamberlain, for having this discussion, although I'm not going to get into the discussion about public or not public. That's a debate in another place. I know where I stand on that. I believe that Brad Lundell said it right, that the quoting former Senator Leroy Stump and his old boss was right. But I do have a series of questions for you that I've withheld throughout the testimony. And I guess the first one is really related to the theme, what I was hearing from people and what I know you probably already assumed I was going to bring. You know, if your bill makes it to the governor's desk, let's say it does, or whatever, but to pass on. But I want to know, with the private schools, because now you're opening up. There's a little doorway of openness here that says these are potentially public taxed dollars, which I'll ask you about after this first question. But going with this first question, you know, would those private schools and those parochial schools be subject to education-related federal laws, such as those that I had listed earlier, assuring the due process rights, People Fair Dismissal Act, Title IX, Public Law 94-142, which has been reauthorized 5 times. I don't know what the new reauthorization is now, but I can get that for you if you want. And then Every Student Succeeds Act, which is, of course, the Elementary Secondary Education Act, as well as Bullying Safe and Supportive Schools. Would those, and I couldn't see it in your language, but, you know, would those schools have to abide by those provisions of due process rights for students, including all students?
Mr. Chair and Senator Hoffman, they are private schools. If there are specific statutes, federal or state, that pertain to public schools specifically and only, then of course they don't address private school issues. That being said, anybody with a child going to private school would be subject to they still live in the United States, they still live in Minnesota, they still have due process, they can still leave the school, they can still file a lawsuit against the school. Matter of fact, that school and those people in that school, running that school, are much more subject to federal and state law and the courts than many of our public schools. So I would say that they'll be held accountable. The statute, it's the language in the bill itself lists many things that not only the foundation, but they have to require the schools are doing certain things, and then the foundations are subject to audit and many other regulations to make sure they're doing what they're doing. So everybody holds everybody accountable, the parents of schools, the courts, and the legislature for the foundations, so there is accountability there.
Mr. Chair,
Senator Hoffman.
I take that as the answer is no, because I think about, yeah, there is accountability, personal accountability, but remember, when I started talking with you early on, education is the equalization factor. It is the great equalization factor, and the folks you had in the first representation all sat there and shook their head yes. And honorable intentions aside, I think of cases like Tatro versus the state of Texas, where the school district told the school said, no, the child can't come to school here because of this. And that made it all the way to the Supreme Court. And the parents all believed that that was not going to happen, but it did happen. But it took an act of the Supreme Court to assure that the child had access. And I'm not hearing from you that you're going to guarantee, because now I will get into that discussion, because you're taking potentially public dollars that would have been there if the tax provision wouldn't be in place. Therefore, that argument stands still, that there's a potential, and I'm not going to say it's an actuality, but the potential for public dollars to be there. So with that, if those potential public dollars are there, wouldn't you agree with me that you should afford the same constitutional rights of a child, including those due process rights, as enamored by both federal law and state law? And what I heard you say to me was, no. Is that correct?
Well, one moment.
Senator Hoffman, I think Senator Chamberlain's answered that question several times already.
So, yeah, Mr. Chair and Senator Hoffman, I'm going to respond quickly, and then our constitutional expert here will address the issue more clearly and succinctly probably than I can. But, again, private schools will be held accountable civilly, criminally, just like they are anywhere else. And we had this conversation before about constitutionality. If you're living in the United States and Minnesota, you have protections of the Constitution, whether you're in a public school or private school. And we can go on and on for days about court cases where public school kids and families were taken to court, and I can come up with cases where kids going to public school were wrong just on the other side. So a tit for tat will not get us anywhere. We come down to an issue of not a blame game, not a legal beagles here. It's about what's the best outcome and options for all these kids. Should we continue to go down this road for another 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years and continue to let them stagnate and fail in these schools, or should they be given options? And that's simply my position. I'd like to have Mr. McGrath address the larger constitutional legal issue, if you would.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Lee McGrath. I'm the Legislative Counsel for the Institute for Justice. The Institute for Justice is a public interest law firm headquartered in Arlington, Virginia. I run the Minnesota office. The Institute for Justice opened its doors in 1991, and for the past 25 years, we have defended the constitutionality of school choice programs like this every single day since 1991. A number of references were made in earlier testimony by Ms. Kelleher and Ms. Dietrich that I thought it might be helpful for the committee to address. This tax credit is constitutional under both the federal Constitution as well as Minnesota's state constitution. Ms. Dietrich talked about a violation of church and state. The United States Supreme Court in Zellman versus Simmons-Harris in 2002 said the Cleveland voucher program did not violate the Establishment Clause. This instrument, as Senator Chamberlain has pointed out, is very different from a voucher, but even a voucher would not violate the First Amendment's protection against the Establishment Clause. Ms. Kelleher rightly pointed out that you have a unique duty in Article 13 to establish a uniform system of public schools. This is something that is in Minnesota state constitutions and other state constitutions, but does not exist, this sort of positive duty that you have at the federal level. But just because you have a duty to do that doesn't mean that you can't do more. Just because you fund public education with $17 billion of funding over the biennium doesn't mean that you can't make space for $35 million in a tax credit that go to scholarship granting organizations. Ms. Kelleher also observed that the second paragraph of Article 13, that is known as the Blaine Amendment, prohibits aid to sectarian schools. This aid is not going to sectarian schools. It is going to parents, and parents are making private choices, and those choices include attending secular schools. They do not, there is not a monopoly here of one sect. There are secular schools, there are Lutheran schools, there are Jewish schools. There is not a single sect that is the benefit there. Moreover, Mr. Chairman, it is shocking, utterly shocking, that the Minnesota School Board Association associates itself with the 19th century nativism and bigotry against immigrants that was codified by the Blaine Amendment. I think the Minnesota School Board Association should research more about who and what they're associating with. And I'd be happy to answer any additional questions about about the constitutionality of this program.
I'd just say, Mr. McGrath, I'd like you to refrain from trying to interpret the intentions of the Minnesota School Boards Association, and let's stick to the facts, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate your style, but it still doesn't answer my question. And let me try to rephrase that. Do you believe that children should not be discriminated against for admission into a private school, as you have put in this Senate File 256?
Children, of course that is true. But what you're presuming is that they will. You are Mr. Chair, Senator Hoffman, you're presuming that they will. I'd like people to look more positively at the opportunities here instead of digging down and looking at the negatives. The presumption here is that you don't trust parents and the schools and the parents to hold those educators in the schools accountable. The very things we talked about, binding the schools and encumbering them and preventing them from doing their job effectively, are the very things you were proposing. I would contend that we have a right and duty to educate all kids, but things have been getting worse for a lot of kids over the last 40 years. So with that, I'll end my comments. I've answered the question numerous times.
One more, Senator Hoffman?
One more. I just want to get the point across, and I think you agree with me on this, Senator Chamberlain. I appreciate that, and I appreciate Mr. McGrath in-depth discussion on constitutionality, and I'm not questioning that. I'm getting to the heart of, if you followed my questions, it was all related. If you go back to 1973, in the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act says there are certain discriminations that you can't have, and I'm getting to the point, if you're going to utilize this funding, don't you agree that you should have language in there that says you will abide by federal laws that have those things that I stated? And I've not got a yes or a no on that. And I just, Senator Chamberlain, please just answer yes or no that you don't think that those provisions should be put in this. And if you think they should be in, then let's work on getting that language in there that shows that you're going to be totally honest to the fact that Section 504 should be within the context of this bill. So that's the question.
Senator Chamberlain.
Mr. Chair, Senator Hoffman, I wish I could quote statute and verse as you do, but the bill does include protections that the schools that are going to be covered and get credits, and Mr. McGrath can correct me on this if I'm wrong or verify it, but there's U.S. civil rights and human rights protections embedded in this bill. The schools, before they get the scholarships from the qualified foundations, have to be qualified schools. And as qualified schools, they had to abide by the human rights requirements and U.S. civil rights issues. So I hope that answers your question. Mr. McGrath, do you have anything else to add to that?
No.
Thank you. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just because Mr. McGrath brought up a lot of the discussion about the constitutional issues and some of the legal discussions, I do want to call members' attention to, there's a handout that we received from the ACLU. It's in our packets. It addresses some of these issues, so, you know, for your spare time, you might want to read their perspective on some of these issues. I just wanted to add that for the record. I do want to just address some of this conversation, and Senator Chamberlain, it is an important conversation, and thank you for bringing it forward. I think Mr. Harris is not here with us tonight anymore. I think he's had to leave, but I was interested in some of his passion, obviously. I appreciate very much the excellent points and arguments and issues raised by the first round of testifiers. But Mr. Harris brought something up that is near and dear to my heart, which is the Ursulines Academy in New Orleans. And many of you have heard the story that is where I am from. I was born and raised and educated in New Orleans. And so I have some familiarity with that. It's an interesting city. I always actually like to point out to people that there are some real parallels between that city at the other end of this river and the one that we're in right now, with a really interesting history of cultures and immigrants and French traders and et cetera, and it has led to some interesting sort of parallels. One thing it led to was a very robust private school system, and it's interesting because my experience in that school, in that city, very much informs why I moved to Minnesota. I am a product of private schools in New Orleans because the public school system, as many of us have seen, is such an abysmal failure. And a big part of that has to do with the way it has been financed over years. There was no property tax. There was no local skin in the game. And it provided an incentive for families to pull their kids of all socioeconomic levels, all academic levels, all types out of the public school system. And you were left then with schools with families who, for a variety of reasons, didn't feel like they had a choice. And it's no secret that the New Orleans education system, with some great exceptional cases of private schools, religious schools, and some really good public schools and charter schools, but it has been a really difficult case. And like I said, I think part of the lesson out of that is that Minnesota has not done things perfectly, but has done things quite well. We all recognize there are many problems in the achievement gap and in other areas, and I would just take issue with some of the things that Senator Chamberlain has indicated, that this is blame game, or that that nobody is trying to make any fixes. I mean, clearly we've all been here for working on these issues. We're here because we care. We're here. We have implemented reforms. They are in the process of being enacted, and I think it's unfair to try to suggest that as if nobody cares about these things. So yes, we have more work to do. There is definitely work to be done. I will remind people, going back to this issue of, because I agree wholeheartedly that that families do need to have choices, and I think Minnesota has been a real beacon of choice in terms of charter schools, open enrollment, local choices. I'm the parent of a kid who goes to a choice program in the public school district. You look at St. Paul schools and other districts where you have Montessori programs, as was referenced earlier in testimony. There are so many different innovations because we have a climate that does encourage some of that innovation. So I appreciate what you're saying. You know, it is a semantic argument that we're not going to resolve here because we are going to definitely have to agree to disagree on that one. But, you know, it is absolutely fair to say that, you know, ultimately the effect of this will be a draining of resources away from our public school systems, and I just firmly believe that is the wrong way to go. And we have some problems, but this is not the solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kent. Mr. McGrath.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to respond to the Senator's invitation for you to read the ACLU's document. The ACLU, in its document, refers to a 1974 case called Minnesota Civil Liberties Union versus State. That decision by the Minnesota Supreme Court was based on a 1973 decision by the U.S. Supreme Court called Nyquist. Since then, however, the Nyquist decision has been overturned. And so the findings of the ACLU are not good law today. It has been overturned by a Minnesota case called Mueller versus Allen in 1983, in which a tax program was upheld as not violating the Establishment Clause. It was overturned, the Nyquist decision was overturned in Zellman versus Simmons-Harris, the Cleveland voucher case that I spoke of. But most recently and most importantly, Mr. Chairman, it was overturned in Arizona Christian School Tuition Organization versus Wynn, in which the United States Supreme Court said that, opponents of a very similar tax credit, the opponents of the credit didn't even have standing. And so the ACLU's analysis is incorrect, but more than just my statement, I will tell you that the Institute for Justice is prepared to, should you pass this law, should the governor sign it, should a lawsuit be provoked, the Institute for Justice will intervene and defend the constitutionality of this program because it is constitutional, and we will do it at no expense to the taxpayers of the state of Minnesota.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Senator Chamberlain.
One final comment is that, again, I'm not blaming anybody, but this is not, I should have mentioned earlier, a better way to describe it is this is not an either or. It's a both and. We don't have to just do one or the other. Doing one does not preclude doing the other. So I believe this is a both and I think some of you have seen that. So I believe it's a both and. I know there's a lot of good teachers and schools in the state. Again, it's about opportunities for the kids. So with that, if I could, I'd like to renew my motion since I'm on the committee.
Thank you. Roll call's been requested. Roll call is granted. Senator Chamberlain renews his motion to that the provision do pass this committee and be referred to Education Finance. The clerk will take the roll.
Senator Anderson. Senator Chamberlain.
Aye.
Senator Clausen.
No.
Senator Swedzinski.
No.
Senator Eichhorn.
Aye.
Senator Hoffman.
No.
Senator Kent.
No.
Senator Uckey.
Aye.
Senator Pratt.
Yes. There being 5 yes votes and 4 no votes, the motion does prevail and will be referred to, will be sent back to the chamber for referral to Education Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Thanks for the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Chamberlain. Thank you. Unless there's any other business in front of the committee, this will stand adjourned.